Deho lies bleeding on the cold station floor, ribs shattered, throat crushed, vision fading. He saved them. The alien mother and child he barely knew. But now he's dying. And no medic in the galaxy will touch him. Because humans heal too fast. Because his biology breaks every rule.
Hold on. Don't leave me.
Because his biology breaks every rule. Desha kneels beside him, tears of light streaming down her face. Her daughter presses small glowing hands against his chest. Together, they pour their life force into his broken body. A desperate gamble. Human regeneration meets alien healing energy. Two impossible biology systems colliding in the dark. His heart stutters. The light flares. And in that moment, the galaxy's oldest fear is about to be shattered. Will he survive? Or will this forbidden fusion kill them all? Deho floated through the observation deck of Station Kepler-4, 442, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor with each careful step. 3 months into his assignment as a human liaison officer, and he still hadn't gotten used to the stairs. Every alien species that passed through the station gave him the same look, a mixture of fascination and something else he couldn't quite name. Fear, maybe. Or disgust. The medic from the Vren Collective had made it abundantly clear that morning. "We cannot treat your kind," the insectoid creature had chittered, its mandibles quivering. "Your biology is unnatural, dangerous. The way your cells regenerate, it violates every principle of sustainable medicine." Deho had only come in for a routine vaccination required for deep space travel. Instead, he'd been turned away, adding another stamp to the growing list of facilities that refused human patients. He pressed his palm against the transparent aluminum window, watching supply ships drift between the station's docking arms. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble that felt farther away than the actual distance suggested. Out here, humanity was still the newcomers, the strange mammals with their bizarre healing speeds and inexplicable resilience. The Galactic Medical Council had officially designated humans as self-sufficient organisms. 3 years ago, a polite way of saying they wanted nothing to do with human physiology. The alarm cut through his thoughts like a blade. Red lights stroked across the observation deck as the station's eye announced a hull breach in Sector 7. Deho's training kicked in immediately. He launched himself toward the emergency corridor, his heart hammering as he yanked a rescue suit from the locker. Sector 7 housed the temporary refugee quarters families displaced by the war in the Outer Rim, waiting for transport to safer zones. He sealed the helmet just as the blast doors began closing. Smoke filled the corridor ahead, and through it, he could see the jagged tear in the station's hull. The void beyond it pulled at loose debris, trying to swallow everything into space. Emergency force fields flickered, struggling to maintain pressure. Deho activated his suit's tether and pushed forward, scanning for life signs. A small figure lay crumpled against a support beam, just meters from the breach. The scanning display on his helmet identified her as Lumina, a child from the Persine species, those graceful beings who looked like living starlight, their skin shifting with bioluminescent patterns that reflected their emotions. She couldn't have been more than 7 in human years. Her left arm was bent at an unnatural angle, and the light beneath her translucent skin pulsed weakly, flickering like a dying star. Deho didn't hesitate. He fired his tether anchor into the wall and launched himself toward her, catching Lumina just as another section of hull peeled away. The force field collapsed completely, and suddenly they were being pulled toward the void. His tether snapped taut, jerking them to a violent stop. Pain exploded through Deho's shoulder. He felt something tear, muscle and ligament ripping, but he held on, wrapping both arms around the small alien girl. "I've got you," he said, knowing she couldn't understand him. Her large oval eyes focused on his face through his helmet, wide with terror. The patterns on her skin flashed rapidly, a distress signal her species used when mortal danger. Deho pulled them hand over hand along the tether, back towards safety, each movement sending fresh agony through his injured shoulder. Blood ran hot down his arm inside the suit, but he forced himself to keep moving. They cleared the blast doors just before they sealed completely. Deho collapsed on the safe side, still cradling Lumana against his chest. Medical teams rushed forward, but they stopped short when they saw him. A Vren medic approached Lumina, carefully extracting her from Deho's arms, but no one moved to help him. "Your arm," one of the medics said, a mammalian creature from Talos 4. "You're injured." "I know," Deho gasped, pain making his vision blur. "Can you?" "We cannot treat humans," the medic said, and there was genuine regret in its three-part voice. "I'm sorry. The medical council's directive is clear. Your healing speed makes intervention dangerous. Medications that work for us are poison to your system, and your tissue regenerates so rapidly that surgery becomes impossible. You heal through procedures, seal around instruments, reject grafts before they can integrate. We could kill you trying to help." Deho nodded, too tired to argue. He'd heard it all before. He watched as they carried Lumana away on a hovering stretcher, her small hand reaching back toward him even as unconsciousness claimed her. Then he was alone in the corridor, cradling his destroyed shoulder, feeling the warm wetness of blood spreading through his suit. Station security helped him out of the rescue gear and escorted him to the human quarters, a small section of Kepler 442, where a handful of human residents lived in self-imposed isolation. Deho sat on his bunk and carefully examined his shoulder. The joint was dislocated, and he could feel torn muscle and possibly damaged tendons. Using his good hand and a wall anchor, he leveraged his shoulder back into place. The pop echoed in the small room, followed by a wave of nausea so intense he nearly passed out. He fashioned a sling from a spare shirt and took 3 of the pain suppressors from his medical kit, the only medication humans could safely use, synthesized from earth plants. Then he lay back on his bunk and waited. This was the reality of being human in space. You got hurt. You fixed yourself. You waited for your freakish biology to do its work. Sleep came in fits, broken by pain and the constant awareness of his body knitting itself back together. He could feel it happening, that strange tingling warmth that other species found so disturbing. By morning, the sharp agony had dulled to an ache. By afternoon, he could move his arm in limited ways, though it protested with every motion. On the 3rd day, there was a knock at his door. Deho opened it to find a Persine woman standing in the corridor. She was taller than him, as most Persine adults were, her skin shimmering with patterns of deep blue and silver. She wore the formal robes of a Persine elder, marked with symbols that indicated high social standing. "You are Deho," she said in standard Galactic, her voice like wind chimes. "You saved my daughter, Lumina," Deho said. "Is she okay?" "She is healing, thanks to you." The woman's patterns shifted to warm golds and oranges. "I am Desha. I have come to. I must understand. You were gravely injured. I saw the medical reports. Your shoulder was destroyed. Yet you stand here, moving that arm. How?" Deho rotated his shoulder carefully. It was still tender, still rebuilding, but functional. "This is normal for humans. We heal fast. It's why the medics won't treat us." Desha's patterns flickered rapidly, a sign of confusion or disbelief. "Fast? No creature heals from such trauma in 3 days. It should take months. Surgical reconstruction. Genetic therapy. You should be disabled for half a year at minimum." "I'll be back to full capacity in about a week," Deho said. "Maybe less. We're just built different, I guess. May I?" Desha gestured toward his shoulder. When he nodded, she reached out with long, delicate fingers, touching the area gently. He could feel warmth from her skin, See the pattern shift to colors he didn't recognize. Remarkable. The tissue is already fused. The density is nearly normal. This should not be possible. It freaks a lot of species out, Deho admitted. That's why we're usually left to handle our own medical issues. Desh's patterns darkened to deep purples. That is shameful. You saved my daughter's life at great cost to yourself, and no one cared for your injuries? She was quiet for a moment, her patterns swirling. Would you come with me? Lumina has been asking about the human who pulled her from the void. She wishes to thank you. Daiho followed Desha through the station's corridors to the medical wing. Other aliens moved aside as they passed, their various forms of expression showing surprise at seeing a human accompanied by a Persine elder. They entered a recovery room where Luma lay on a specialized bed, her small body surrounded by medical equipment that hummed and glowed. Her arm was encased in what looked like a shell of solidified light. When she saw Deho, her entire body brightened, patterns of yellow and pink dancing across her skin. She said something in the Persine language, rapid and excited. She says you are her hero, Desha translated. She says you held her like she was precious, even when you were in pain. She could feel it, the pain. Our kind sense such things. Yet you never let go. Deho sat in the chair beside the bed. Hi, Lumana. I'm glad you're okay. The girl reached out with her good hand, and Deho let her take his fingers. Her skin was warm and slightly luminescent, pulsing gently where she touched him. She spoke again, looking at her mother. She asked if your arm still hurts, Desha said. She is worried about you. Tell her I'm fine, Deho said. Tell her she's much braver than me. She didn't cry at all. As Desha translated, Lumana's patterns shifted through a rainbow of colors. She tugged on Deho's hand, pulling him closer, then pressed her small palm against his injured shoulder. Warmth spread through his skin, and he felt something shift inside the healing tissue, not painful, but strange, like everything was aligning more perfectly. Lumai. No, Desha said sharply in standard, reaching to stop her daughter. You are too weak for healing projection. But Lumina kept her hand in place, her face scrunched with concentration. The patterns on her skin grew brighter, and Deho felt the ache in his shoulder fade almost completely. After a moment, the girl sagged back against her pillows, her light dimming. What did she just do? Deho asked, rotating his shoulder. It felt better than it had since the injury almost completely healed. Desha was checking Lumana's vital signs, her patterns showing concern. She used healing projection, an ability our people possess. We can accelerate healing in others, but it costs us energy, life force. She should not have done this in her weakened state. But there was wonder in her voice too, though I have never seen it work so effectively. Your body accepted the energy, used it. Usually, there is resistance, rejection. Your cells were hungry for it. Over the following days, Deho visited Lumina regularly. Desha was often there, and slowly a strange friendship formed. The Persine woman was fascinated by human biology, asking questions that Deho often couldn't answer. How did their immune systems work so aggressively? Why did their bones knit back together after breaking? How could their organs regenerate from partial damage? We're just normal to us, Deho said one afternoon, sitting in the medical wing's waiting area while Luman underwent therapy. We don't think about it. When I was a kid, I fell out of a tree and broke my arm. Had a cast for 6 weeks. It healed. That's just how bodies work, right? Wrong, Desha said softly. Her patterns showed deep blue, the color of intense thought. Most species do not recover from broken bones, not without extensive medical intervention. Some never regain full function. Your species treats catastrophic injuries as minor inconveniences. But it makes you all uncomfortable, Deho said. The medics act like we're contagious. Like our healing is something wrong. Dash's patterns flickered. It is not discomfort. It is fear. The galaxy has rules, biological laws that govern all life. Humans seem to break these rules, and we do not understand how. What we do not understand, we fear. What we fear, we avoid. She paused. But I am beginning to think we have been fools. Your healing is not a curse. It is a gift. A miracle. It doesn't feel like a miracle when every medical facility turns you away, Deho said. No, Desha agreed. It must feel like abandonment. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Desha told him about Persine culture, about their homeworld, where the cities glowed with bioluminescent architecture, where light was language and art and life itself. Deho shared stories of Earth, of oceans and forests, of humanity's chaotic climb into space. They talked about their fears of losing Lumana in the station breach, his of dying alone in space because no medic would touch him. One evening, as Lumana slept in her recovery bed, Desha and Deho stood at an observation window, watching the stars. My people have a concept, Desha said quietly. Luminance bonding. When two souls recognize each other across the darkness, they create new light together. It is rare, even among Perseans. Rarer still between different species. Deho felt his heart speed up. Are you saying? I am saying that when I look at you, I see light, Desha said. Her patterns shifted to soft pinks and golds. Even though your kind does not glow as mine does, there is brightness in you. Courage. Kindness. You risked everything for a child you did not know, and you asked nothing in return. You're a mother who loves her daughter, Deho said. And you're the first person out here who didn't treat me like I was broken because I healed too fast. Desha's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his own. The touch sent warmth up his arm, a pleasant tingle that had nothing to do with healing. Perhaps we are both breaking rules, she said. The rule that says your healing makes you untouchable. The rule that says our species are too different for connection. I'm okay with breaking rules, Deho said. They stood together in silence, hands joined, watching the infinite stars. Behind them, Lumina made a small sound in her sleep, and both turned to check on her. The girl's patterns were calm, showing she was at peace, dreaming safely. When Deho looked back at Desha, he found her watching him with an expression he was beginning to recognize, not fear of his strangeness, but acceptance of it. Maybe even appreciation, but peace never lasted long in space. 2 weeks after the hull breach, tensions exploded in the refugee sector. A group of displaced Krenan warriors, bitter about the war that had destroyed their homeworld, started a riot. They blamed the Galactic Council for abandoning their planet, and their rage spilled through the station like fire. Station security was overwhelmed within hours. Deho was in his quarters when the emergency lockdown began. Through his door's communication panel, he could hear the chaos screams, the sound of things breaking, weapons fire. His first thought was of Lumina and Desha. They were still in the medical wing, and according to the station map, the riot was moving in that direction. He grabbed his emergency gear and overrode, his door lock a trick he'd learned from a shady merchant in the station's lower levels. The corridor outside was chaos. Smoke filled the air, and displaced refugees ran past, trying to escape the violence. Deho moved against the flow, toward the medical wing, his heart hammering. A Krenan warrior, massive and armored, easily 3 times Deho's mass blocked the corridor ahead. The creature saw him and roared, raising a plasma weapon. Deho dove sideways as the shot scorched the wall where he'd been standing. He rolled, came up running, and slammed into the warrior's midsection. It was like hitting a wall, and pain exploded through his still healing shoulder, but he managed to knock the warrior off balance. The plasma weapon clattered away. The Krenin grabbed Deho and threw him against the wall, hard enough to crack the metal panel behind him. Deho felt ribs break, felt blood fill his mouth. But he'd fought through worse. He grabbed a piece of fallen debris, a jagged section of wall paneling, and drove it into the gap in the warrior's armor at the knee joint. The Krenin bellowed and released him. Deho didn't wait. He ran, each breath sending agony through his broken ribs, blood trailing behind him. He had to reach the medical wing. Had to make sure they were safe. He found them barricaded in Lumina's room, the door sealed. Through the window, he could see Desha holding her daughter, both of them pressed into the corner farthest from the door. A Krenin warrior was trying to force entry, pounding on the reinforced barrier. Deho didn't think. He launched himself at the warrior, grabbing its weapon arm and twisting. The creature was strong, but Deho used momentum and leverage, channeling every dirty fighting technique he'd learned in Earth's military. They crashed to the floor together. The warrior's elbow caught Deho in the face, and he felt his nose break, felt more blood pour down his face, but he didn't let go. He couldn't. Inside that room were two people who had become his entire world. Station security arrived as Deho was losing consciousness, as the warrior's hands closed around his throat. They stunned the Krenin, and suddenly Deho could breathe again. He lay on the floor, gasping, tasting blood, feeling his body catalog all the damaged broken ribs. Broken nose, crushed throat, dislocated shoulder again. Internal bleeding. The door to Luma's room opened. Desha rushed out, her patterns flashing between terror and relief. Deho! No, no, please. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over his body, afraid to touch, to cause more damage. I'm okay, Deho rasped, though he definitely wasn't. Are you? Is Lumina? We are safe because of you, Desha said. Tears ran down her face, leaving trails of light on her skin. But you are not okay. You are dying. I can see it. Your life force is fading. I just need time, Deho said. Humans are tough. Just give me a few days. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. This was different from the shoulder injury. This was worse. He could feel his body trying to heal, but there was too much damage, too many systems failing at once. His vision was going dark at the edges. No, Desha said firmly. Her patterns shifted to brilliant white, so bright it hurt to look at. No, you do not get to die. Not after all of this. Not after showing me what true courage looks like. She placed both hands on his chest, directly over his heart. Lumina came and knelt beside them, adding her small hands to her mother's. Together, their patterns blazed like twin stars, and Deho felt warmth flood through him, not the normal warmth of pristine touch, but something more, something fundamental. Energy poured into him, and his body seized it desperately, using it to accelerate healing beyond even human capabilities. His ribs knit back together in seconds instead of weeks. His crushed throat opened, letting him drag in a full breath. The internal bleeding stopped, clotted, began to resolve. Even his broken nose realigned itself with an audible crack that made the security officers watching step back in shock. When Desha and Lumina finally lifted their hands, both of them swayed with exhaustion. Deho sat up, his body still aching but functional, alive. He caught Desha as she collapsed, held her like she'd become infinitely precious. You healed me, he said, wonder in his voice. But the medics said. The medics were wrong, Desha said weakly. Her patterns were dim, barely visible. They said your healing made you untouchable, impossible to treat. But they never tried combining our abilities with yours. Never thought to pour energy into a system already designed to heal itself. Your body and my healing, they work together perfectly. Lumina pressed against Deho's side, her patterns barely glowing. Hero, she said in careful standard Galactic, the first word in his language she'd learned. Station security medics arrived, the same ones who had refused to treat Deho before. They stared at him in disbelief. "You were dying," one of them said. "We saw the injuries. You should be dead." "The Perseans healed me," Deho said, helping Desha stand. Turns out human biology isn't incompatible with treatment. It just needs a different approach. The Vren medic, who had turned him away weeks ago, stepped forward, its mandibles quivering. This changes everything. If Persene healing can work with human regeneration, we need to study this. Document it. The medical council must know. "You can document it after you help them," Deho said, gesturing to Desha and Lumina. "They used their life force to save me. They need treatment." For once, the medics didn't hesitate. They took Desha and Lumina to the medical wing, with Deho following despite protests that he should rest. He sat by their beds as they recovered, holding Desha's hand, watching her pattern slowly brighten as her strength returned. "You scared me," Desha said softly when she woke. "When I saw you fighting that warrior, bleeding, dying, I realized that I could not exist in a universe where you did not. Does that frighten you? That I feel this strongly, this quickly?" "No," Deho said honestly. "Because I feel it too. I've been alone out here for so long. Every station, every ship, everywhere I went, I was the weird human with the freaky healing. No one wanted to get close. No one except you and Lumina. My daughter loves you," Desha said. "She calls you her second father when I am not translating." Deho felt his throat tighten. "And you? What do you call me?" Desha's patterns shifted to the soft golds and pinks he'd learned meant affection, love, hope. "I call you mine, if you will have us. I know it is complicated. Our species are different. There will be challenges. But I think that we could build something beautiful together. Create new light in the darkness." "I'd like that," Deho said. "More than anything." He leaned down and kissed her forehead, feeling the warmth of her skin, seeing her patterns dance in response. Across the room, Lumina's bed brightened as she giggled. Her own patterns showing joy. The Galactic Medical Council convened an emergency session 2 weeks later. Deho and Desha stood before representatives of 100 species, presenting their findings. When Persene healing energy was combined with human regenerative capabilities, the results were unprecedented. Humans could survive injuries that would kill most species, and Perseans could heal others more effectively than ever documented. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. This partnership could revolutionize medical treatment, the Council had acknowledged. If humans and Perseans are willing to work together, we could establish new protocols, new emergency response teams. "There's a condition," Deho said. "Humans stop being treated like biological pariahs. Our healing isn't a curse or a disease. It's just different. And different doesn't mean wrong." The Council deliberated. In the end, they agreed. The medical facilities that had turned away human patients were ordered to develop new treatment protocols to stop discriminating based on fear and misunderstanding. It wouldn't happen overnight. Changing galactic policy never did, but it was a start. Deho and Desha left the council chambers hand in hand, with Lumina walking between them. The girl had made a full recovery and seemed to have grown 2 inches, her patterns constantly showing happiness whenever Deho was near. "What happens now?" Desha asked as they walked through the station's gardens, a space where plants from a dozen worlds grew together under artificial sunlight. "Now we figure it out," Deho said. "Together. Maybe we find a place where a human and 2 Perseans can build a home. Maybe we travel the galaxy, helping people, showing them that different species can bridge the gaps between them. Maybe we create a family," Desha said softly. Her hand moved to his cheek, her touch warm and familiar now. one that glows in unexpected ways. "I like that idea best," Deho said. He kissed her then, properly, a kiss that tasted like possibility and starlight. Around them, the garden's bioluminescent plants seemed to brighten in response, as if the universe itself was celebrating their connection. Lumana laughed and spun in circles, her patterns creating a light show that drew other station residents to stop and stare. For the first time since leaving Earth, Deho felt like he belonged somewhere. Not because his body had stopped being strange or different, but because he'd found people who saw that strangeness and chose to embrace it. Who saw his humanity with all its resilience and vulnerability and called it beautiful. They stood together in the garden as the station's artificial evening began, the lights dimming to simulate night. Vesh's head rested on Deho's shoulder, and Lumina sat at their feet, drawing pictures in the air with her glowing fingers. A family born from crisis, built on understanding, strengthened by difference. Above them, through the transparent dome, real stars shone alongside the false ones. The galaxy was vast and often cold, but in that moment, wrapped in warmth and light, Deho knew they would find their place in it. Together, they would show the universe that healing, whether fast or slow, human or alien, was always worth celebrating. That love could bridge any gap, no matter how strange or impossible it seemed. And somewhere in the medical wing, researchers were already studying what they were calling the porcine human synthesis, developing new protocols that would save countless lives. But that was tomorrow's work. Tonight was for family, for love, for the quiet miracle of finding your light in the darkness. Deho pulled both Vesha and Lumina close, and for the first time in years, he felt completely whole.